friends, this is Hannah from Handmade by Design, and today I'm going to be making two projects, and they're both all about birds. DIY number one is canisters two ways. I thrifted these awesome white canisters, 3 of them, and on the front they say number 1, number 2, and number 3, and it was $4.49 for all 3 canisters. I love them just the way they are, but I want to add a little something to them. So the first thing that I did is I washed them very well in soap and water, dishwasher soap and water, rinsed them and dried them, took off all the tags, because I am going to be placing food items in them and using them in my kitchen. After I washed and dried them, I went over the entire exterior of the canisters with alcohol just to make sure that there was no lingering grease or fingerprints on, and so that whatever I was placing onto the canisters would adhere better. I used a bird wall sticker decor that I purchased from Temu for $2.08 to apply to the front of all 3 canisters, and I have lots of birds left to use with other projects. I just cannot get over how wonderful these birds are. I love the color. I love the quality. I love that they stuck so well to the canisters. So I opened the package and I decided which birds were going to go on which canister. I did kind of like a dry fit so that I could see how many birds I could get on each canister. And these canisters are going to be double-sided. The numbers are going to be on one side and the birds are going to be on another. So I cut out the birds for canister number 1, removed them from the backing, and simply pressed them on to the back of the canister. I had to make a few cuts to make the birds fit properly around the handles. Canister number 1 is complete, and this is the final outcome of how the birds look on canister number 1. I really love the way that they look, and I also love the fact that the birds are big and they almost completely cover the canister. I did the same thing for canister number 2. I dry fit the birds to the canister, and then I cut out the shapes of the birds that I'm going to apply to canister number 2. I remove the birds from the backing on canister number 2 and apply the birds to the canister. Once I'm happy with the way that the birds fit on the second canister, then I am ready to move on to canister number 3. I follow the same exact steps for placing the birds onto canister number 3. I take my time and I adhere all of the birds slowly onto the canister from one side to another to make sure that there are no bubbles in the birds and that they fit properly all around the canister. I just tuck the tail feathers underneath the canister. You can cut them off, but I just tuck them under. I make a small cut near the handle so that all of the bird pieces fit flush against the canister. And I just love the way these birds came out. There's just something so enticing, happy, and cheerful about birds. I just love birds. I also love the fact that these can be like cool urban canisters with the numbers 1, 2, and 3 on them, and turning them around, they look completely different. For DIY number 2, we're going to be adding a hummingbird and a flower onto a tray. I used a 2013 calendar of birds that I bought from the Dollar Tree, and I'm pretty sure I bought the tray at the Dollar Tree, but I'm not sure. I might have bought it at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. I've had it such a long time, I really can't remember exactly where I bought the tray. But I cut the hummingbird and the flower off of the calendar, and then I just placed it inside of the tray and used my fingers just to make an indentation on the top and the bottom of the picture so that I could see where I needed to cut the paper so that it would fit nicely into the tray. I used Elmer's stick glue, the kind that's purple when it's wet and dries clear, on the entire back of the picture so that I would get a good adhesion onto the tray all along the middle of the picture and especially on the sides of the picture so that there would be no lifting once that it was put down into the tray. I then used a little plastic squeegee, which I'm sure I purchased that from the Dollar Tree, just to make sure that there was no air or lumps or bumps or areas of the piece of calendar paper that was not adhered well to the tray. Next, I'm using the color Leaf Green from Delta Paints from Michael's, and I'm going to paint the inside of the frame, the top of the frame, and the outside of the frame, all with the same color. And if any of the paint gets on to the calendar, I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to be painting over it. I added the color Deep Green into the leaf green. The deep green is from the Dollar Tree, and I mixed it up with some of the leaf green paint until I felt that it matched darker green on the page of the calendar. I added the darker green onto the page of the calendar, and then I came up the sides of the tray and onto the top of the tray and actually onto the outside of the tray with the same color. And after that, I began adding the darker green paint and the lighter green paint much more heavily into the inside of the tray. And I just about filled the tray with the dark green paint and the light green paint, and I painted very carefully around the flower and around the hummingbird. And I carried those colors of the paint onto the top of the tray, around to the outside of the tray. I continued adding the 2 colors of the green paint and just blending them as I went. And so I would add a little bit and blend a little bit and add a little bit and blend a little bit until I was happy with the way that the green background looked on the paper. Next, I added just a touch of black paint into the light green paint. And so I had a third color on, and I added all 3 colors, and I blended, and I added, and I blended, and I really took my time and just kept blending until I was completely happy with the way that the green looked on the painting. And as you can see now, the entire paper is completely painted except for the hummingbird and the flower. Once I'm happy with the way that the green background looks on the paper, I begin to add yellow paint to the flower. And as you can see, I'm stippling a little bit, and that helps with blending on the green paint. So now I move to the yellow paint, and anywhere that there was yellow on the flower, I just painted in a little bit of yellow because I'm looking for the consistency in the painting so that everything looks like it's painted, and this gives it also it gives it some texture. So this gives it color, texture, and also the same consistency as the green background. I go in with white acrylic paint, and I do the exact same thing. I go around the entire outside of the flower, and I line the flower, and I add white paint onto the flower wherever there is white paint on the calendar flower. I love the way this is turning out, and it's beginning to look more and more like an original work of art. This is such a fun way to make your artwork look original, and it just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of practice, and you can do this on top of any kind of paper. I watch Painted Love, and this is how I learned this technique. John paints furniture and uses decoupage papers and all different colors of papers. And when he paints a piece of furniture and adds a piece of decoupage paper, he paints next to and directly over the decoupage paper until his furniture pieces have achieved the look that he really wants, which is to say, original artwork rather than decoupage. And it's just amazing. And so I adopted his technique to use as well. Here I come in with the green paint. It's the leaf green paint, and I paint all the green parts that are on the flower. I come in with acrylic black paint using a very fine brush, and I go over the wing of the hummingbird, and I go over the chest of the hummingbird. I go over the feathers on the tail feathers, and I also go over the eye and part of the neck on the hummingbird. I'm adding all of those white to the painting, and I'm going to blend most of it back in, but I do like to have the high spots and the light spots that the white brings out on the painting. I think it makes it look much more interesting. So I continue to add the white onto the painting, and when I'm waiting for the white to dry, I go back to the hummingbird. I add white paint to the neck of the hummingbird, around the eyes of the hummingbird, on part of the feathers of the hummingbird, on the tail, and I just move back to the flower for a second and I apply orange paint. The color is vermilion from the Dollar Tree onto the stamen of the flower. I then go back onto the hummingbird with a little bit of black paint, and once I'm satisfied with the black paint, I move on to the blue paint, and I begin adding blue paint onto the wings of the bird, onto the feathers of the bird, onto the breast of the bird, onto the neck of the bird, and I also go up into the to the wings on top, the first pair of wings on top of the bird, and I just fill the bird in with blue paint. All of the painting on this bird and on this painting is done in real time so that you can see just how easy and how long it takes to make a faux original piece of artwork for yourself. So there'll be times when I'm not talking and I will just be painting. There's only a few minutes left on the video, but I did not want you to miss out on any of the techniques or the paint colors that I used in case you want to duplicate what I've done. The paint is phthalo blue from the Dollar Tree. It's a beautiful royal blue paint, and I add the royal blue paint as I go along, and later I add a little bit of white to the blue paint and continue to add the blue paint along the hummingbird until I'm completely satisfied with the way that the hummingbird looks. And this purple hummingbird turns into a beautiful blue hummingbird. I'm so pleased with the way that it finally turns out, but I am patient and I take my time with the white paint, the blue paint, and a combination of the blue and white paint. And I work carefully with the wings and the tail feathers, and I even add the blue onto the beak of the bird. I'm always amazed at how much a color of paint can change the entire look of a painting. And I thought, even though I liked the purple, I thought that it was dark and drab, and I wanted a much brighter, happier looking hummingbird. And I love this color blue, and so I changed the hummingbird to a blue hummingbird simply by adding a little bit of paint. Once I have finished adding all of the blue paint to the hummingbird, this project is complete. I'm not an artist, but this just shows you how easy it is to achieve the look of original artwork. We can all do it. I so enjoyed making these projects for you, and I hope that it inspires you to make something beautiful. If you enjoy the projects that I made, please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification button so that you will be notified the next time that I make a video. Again, thank you so much for watching, and until then, I will see you next time.